Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, this is MGDfx representing iGame2TV.com and GamerCulture.com, and let's see what we're going to talk about today. I turn on my Windows 8, and I got this news program. It tells me all of this news stuff that's going on, and it says, rebels proliferate up north, but what's their cause? Rebels, you may ask, for my international audience. Well, I'm in Cambodia now, but I'm a U.S. citizen and family been in America for, let's just say 250 years or something like that. Few generations. Family fought in the Civil War, all that good stuff. On the right side, on the winning side, of course. But, so, rebels mean people who have an admiration or fly what we call the Confederate flag. Now, Confederates in my eyes are like really the first terrorist group in America after it was actually made a country on its own. As a group, they decided that they wanted to break up the Union, the United States of America, and form their own union. But as people always say, one man's terrorist is another man's freedom fighter. So people who don't agree with me, of course, are just going to call the Confederates rebels. People who want states' rights and freedoms. No, we have laws for that. So let's give a little bit of history. And I'm actually a history teacher, and with a lifetime, what do they call it, certificate to teach in New York. But anyway, okay, don't forget about all certificates and all that crap. Let's just talk from the heart. Now, alright. It was interesting when I became a teacher because look, you gotta remember, I grew up in the 70s. I watched the Dukes of Hazzard. I was like, yeah! I remember when I was little, my pops even had a car. Door didn't work. I was like, no problem. I'm hopping through the window, just like in the General Lee. I didn't know what that flag meant. I actually kind of thought it was cool when I was young because I didn't know what it meant. And they didn't really teach us that. I don't even know if they really taught us that in school, except talking about the Civil War, and they just, the flag. That's the flag that the rebels used, or the Confederate soldiers used. Because in America, because of what happened after the Civil War, where they wanted to bring in the Southern soldiers back, and they didn't want to try them for treason and all that good stuff, is hang them, because they wanted peace in the Union, and that's so everybody can live together. That but they didn't hear those theme songs, save your Dixies, because the South will rise again. Well, I guess it's a rising, but you have to understand. Okay, this is the issue which I have, which is weird to me. People like to associate things that have nothing to do with each other. And then in the same tone, people like to disassociate things when it does have everything to do with something. And this I'm talking about in the second part. A lot of teachers were teaching that the Civil War was not about slavery. It was about states' rights, and it was about money, and it was about this. And I'm like, wait a second. It was about states' rights because they wanted to have slaves. It was about money because the North thought it was unfair that the South didn't have to pay their employees, aka slaves. So the North couldn't make money like the South did, which had to do with slavery. So, so it's like every argument, people are like, yeah, we're just going to look right on the water, but we're not going to call it water. We're just going to call it waves. So it's really illogical to me. All right, so what about these people? When I was in college, there was a news report. I'm from New York, and they said that the largest concentration of KKK members was in Jersey. Now, I live by the Hudson River. Riverside, baby, representing. I could see Jersey from just opening up my house, my door. And I was like, wow, all those KKK members. Now, it's interesting to me because, you have a lot of people that say, oh yeah, you could fly the flags and all that stuff like that. Okay. But remember this theory. You can't shout fire in a crowded area or you'll get arrested. Which also, because that would incite a disturbance, which also entails that if you fly a Confederate flag in a black neighborhood and get your ass whipped, those people shouldn't get arrested because you basically incited a riot. And it was your responsibility not to fly it in front of people who are annoyed that are going to actually whip that ass. Now, other people say, oh, it had nothing to do with slavery. It dealt with rebels, and we go back to states' rights and all that kind of stuff. Okay, fine. States' rights, yada, yada, yada. They wanted the new states to have the option to have slaves after that whole, what happened, 3/4 thing where the slaves could be counted as 3/4 of man so they can get represented in the government. And, and they knew that if the new states that were going to join the Union did not have slaves, that they would have had less representation within the government to support slavery. And I'm like, wow, everything goes back to slavery. But these people want to disassociate everything. But, it's just so that they can feel better about holding up a rebel flag. Now, and this is part of the problem. In the article, it was funny. One dude said, I'm not racist. My child or my grandkid, whatever, somebody in his family's half black. I'm like, yeah, that got nothing to do with you. That had to do with what was the mama's and the papa's decision to do that. And that got nothing to do to mean that you actually like that child or invite that child over for apple pie to watch baseball games or whatever. But, it's crazy. And people actually really need to understand the history of that flag. And not the KKK history and not the Nazi history, because that's all new stuff. Know where the flag really came from. Understand that the flag was part of a rebellion inside the United States of America so that states could have the right of slavery representation within their union. That's what it was about. And people, the white supremacy. Slavery was technically not white supremacy or anything like that. It was people trying to take advantage of other people so that they can make money. It's half the time it wasn't even like a racial thing, except most of the races today didn't have ancestors that owned slaves. Those were probably the poor people, because there weren't that many slave owners in America, because you had like 300 slaves and you had like, the slave owner and his family, whatever. But what happens is most of the people who are racist now are these poor white people whose ancestors didn't own slaves, but kind of resented the fact that black people actually, especially during segregation, were able to make their own towns, make their own money, become successful, until desegregation kind of messed it up. And people got a little sloppy with their journey for the American dream. So instead of wanting to own businesses, they went for the government job and they wanted to get on workfare. But I digress. My whole joint is, be careful where you fly that flag. And, I'll be the first one to be like, Black Rage! Pat, 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 pat! You know what I mean? But I don't know. I'm a peaceful dude, and I'm in Cambodia now. So the flag, I'm just, it would be kind of interesting if, Cambodia history, someone walks around with a Khmer Rouge flag, if the history of Cambodia, but, and they try to say, oh, but it's about Cambodia independence, Cambodian nationalism. And they forget about the horrors that was caused by that flag. So, people try and put it on the KKK, people try and put it on the Nazis, but no, the origin, the basic premise of the flag itself, and I'm not going into the X over the red and how many stars it has in it, which represents its own, but I'm talking about why those people needed a separate flag from the United States flag of America, the flag of the United States of America. Why they thought that they should start an all-out war against the Union, against the country, and start. See, and this is the other thing. They call it the Second American Revolution. No, it wasn't. You weren't rebelling against anything. You just wanted cheap labor, so you could keep making your cotton money or your tobacco money and not have to pay staff. It wasn't a revolution. It was a business decision. Take it as it was, and you wanted cheap labor. So, or I'm sorry, free labor. Well, it wasn't free. You had to feed them and house them. Anyway, so, but don't take it on what these people are. Read the history of that rebel flag and read the true history of the Civil War, because it's not what these teachers are trying to teach these kids today. It all has to do with slavery. No matter how you cut it, don't chop it in layers. Well, it's MGDfx representing iGame2TV. I hope you like this little commentary. If you like this commentary, or if you don't, subscribe, put on the hate, hit me back up, educate me. YouTube fam, MGDfx, I'm out. One. Take a look out. I don't know if I have a wiki link to the Rebel Flag joint in the joint below. Well,